I've known Terry for a number of years, and I'll always remember when Terry joined the fire brigade many years ago, because I turned round and said to my father, "Daddy, I would like just to be like Terry when I grow up." Testament to the number of years that Terry has been in. Very emotive subject. As a current fire officer and having served for a number of years in the UK and here in the UAE, I fully understand and sympathise. I, like you all did, witnessed Duncan becoming, a bit upset because someone that was close to him has unfortunately lost their life, and that affects us all. And it's very difficult for me as an individual. I'm not going to go relay. Thankfully, I've not lost anyone close to me in a fire, but like Terry and any of the rest of the individuals here who've served in the fire service have witnessed the tragedy that it brings. What I would like to focus on, and this presentation is only just a short introduction into something I feel particularly strong about. And the reason I feel strong about it is because I've witnessed the technology advancements that have been made in the fire service. I joined in the early 80s when we didn't have the extent of tools, the equipment, the building protection that is in place at the moment. We didn't have all that. We had to rely purely on our skills and our abilities to fight fires. And there was a comment made earlier, I believe it was by Duncan. He was asked by one of his officers to go into a building and eat smoke. And that is exactly what it was like. Thankfully, we're not there anymore. We don't have that. But listening to the technologists today who are talking all about the advances in technology, where we're going, where we expect to be in 5, 10, 15 years' time, that invariably will make the life of the firefighter that bit more safe, because they are going to be going into a situation where, let's face it, the fire engineering aspect of the building maybe hasn't failed, but is not working properly. Now, that could be down to a number of factors, which brings me on to the human performance factor. So that's what I would like to quickly, discuss today. I don't intend it to be a lecture. In some cases, it's very difficult not to do that because I will be relating to aspects of human performance. But I would just like to share with you some of those aspects to let you see the type of work that I've been involved with and many others have been involved with, particularly in the industry I am in at the moment here in the UAE, to make sure that those individuals who are committed to save the lives of others are given the maximum level of protection. And that's what my aim to do is. So what I'd like to do is just go through two incidents. I'm not reporting on the incidents. I'm not providing facts or interrogation of what happened, but I would like to just highlight them to you in terms of, hopefully they're up, in terms of the human performance aspect. So I'll just read to make sure I get it correctly. On the 6th of July, 1988, there were 167 individuals. Now, my presentation relates to firefighters, and of those 167 individuals, part of the Rig Fire team were involved in that number. And they lost their lives after a series of explosions ripped through the Piper Alpha platform in the North Sea off the coast of Scotland, which is my home, it's where I am from. The platform was engulfed in fire, and it then subsequently started to break up, and parts and units, modules fell into the North Sea. It became the largest offshore incident in history, and it affected almost 10% of the UK's oil production. Now, the principal failings, which you'll see on screen here, were down to human performance issues. There were other issues involved. Again, I said I don't want to go through the detail of it, but there were principally human performance-related issues attributed to work permit process. So something went wrong. You can see on the list here, that is actually a synopsis of what actually happened. And at the end, 167 individuals died. Then there was another incident, which is a bit closer to home for me, to Terry and some of the other UK firefighters who are here today. You'll see this one happened in Blaenau, in South Wales, in the UK. On the 1st of February 1996, two firefighters, Kevin Lane and Stephen Griffin, were tragically killed whilst attempting to rescue a 5-year-old child. The child's name was Daniel Harford. Now, Daniel subsequently died as a result of his injuries. However, those two brave firefighters who had came out of the building, they were then went back into the building, were caught in a blast. The door that they entered by, which was the front door, was then jammed in the hose. And because the rescue efforts were thwarted, for want of a better word, by this explosion, it was difficult to get in to save the two firefighters. And those two, as a result of their injuries, unfortunately lost their lives. Now, those two incidents are on different extents of, or different levels of the scale. One was 167 and one was 2 plus this child. But those illustrate those human performance failures and affect our ability as human beings to apply a more effective level of anticipation. Firefighters should be better prepared to anticipate what's going to happen in any given situation. What I would say is, on Piper Alpha, if more preparation had been given to the work permit process, there is a likelihood that may not have happened. And the chances are 167 people would not have died. In terms of Blaenau, if the information was of a better quality, then the firefighters who were recommitted to save someone who wasn't actually there. So they re-entered the house with information to say that someone was still there, another child was still there, but there wasn't. It was only a supposition. Somebody thought they heard someone say something else. So our human nature as human beings is that we want to try and save and protect someone. And that is one of the difficult aspects, particularly in firefighters, that myself and others as managers have to control. We human beings have a natural urge to protect our fellow human beings. And in certain cases, we will take risks. Many cases of the fire brigade firefighters, those risks will be calculated. But in some cases, those risks can be reckless. And I don't mean they're carelessly reckless. It's all well-intentioned, but they may be considered reckless, and the outcome, particularly in Blaenau, whilst I'm not suggesting they were reckless, they were not carefully thought through. So firefighters, unfortunately, lost their lives because of misinformation. And I think you would agree with me, that's just not acceptable. And as a manager, I wouldn't accept that. That would be something that would trouble me for a long, long time. So how do we address this? We have to understand that people are fallible. We have to understand that situations, you're going to make a mistake. Even the best people make mistakes, and I'll use an example I won't put on the screen. But Blockbuster Video in the UK was a big video chain. And they had the opportunity to buy Netflix and acquire Netflix for a very small amount of money. But their board said no. Now, we don't think it's going to be a very good, viable prospect. 10 years later, what a mistake they made, didn't they? Because now Blockbuster in the UK are now out of business, and Netflix is the largest film streaming platform in the world. So they made a mistake. Now that is a mistake that was made, and there is no effect to life, or any impact whatsoever. But it was still a mistake, and it still demonstrates that even people at the highest level, people who you would assume have the intellect and the ability to run a large corporation, a large company, to make a decision that would benefit. But in this case, they clearly didn't. So, consciously competent, you'll see there. Now, probably many of you are aware of the model. You go from being consciously incompetent, and you hope to work your way up to become unconsciously competent, which means you can do the job without even thinking about it. I would suggest firefighters have to stop at the consciously competent. Firefighters have to know that what they're doing and understand what they're doing without doing it very in a blasé manner, without thinking it'll be okay, nothing's going to happen. So what we have to do is prepare our firefighters not to go beyond this level of competence, being unconsciously competent, but prepare them to be consciously, it's difficult for me to say, consciously competent. In other words, they think about what they're doing. What we want to do is we want to take away that desire or that will to just go into a situation without thinking about it, without considering the implications. Now, when I say that, every firefighter has a level of responsibility in which they will consider. But there are many, many aspects of that which will lead them into what is known as an error trap or making a mistake. And if you're going to make a mistake, there are a number of areas that you have to understand. And I've put on the screen here a number of issues. For example, we must understand that error-likely situations are predictable and manageable and preventable. Why? Well, we can see a visible hazard. If there was a hole in the ground, you wouldn't walk towards it, blind and just fall into the hole. You would also use the appropriate levels of planning. And what was important in the example I gave in Blaina was information. If the information is not credible and it can't be confirmed, then you have to decide in those brief seconds whether you're going to commit or you're not going to commit. Now, it's a very, very difficult decision. So we as fire officers have to train our firefighters on the ground that they have to be able to make that decision. They have to decide, will they do it, will they not? And we have to give them those tools. We also have to realize that behavior can be influenced by organizational processes and also values, teamwork. You want to join part of your team. You want to be part of the team and do what you've got to do. So there are a number of different aspects of that which are important. I don't want to say too long on this, but running through them, you also have people achieve performance and events can be avoided. So my answer, Mike, to you is, what are we going to do about that as managers? How are we going to rest easy at night by providing our firefighters? As I've already said earlier, we provide them with the tools and equipment. The standard is much, much higher than it used to be, but we have to educate their thinking. Now, there is a level of education there already, but the time spent with firefighters is generally skills-based training. But what I want to do is include an element of lateral thinking, adjust levels of human performance. To do that, we can run through looking at different precursors where errors would be made, task demands, time, pressure from people, commercial demands. We also have to look at individual capabilities. Can the person physically do the task? Are they able to think through the task? The work environment they're in, and also human nature. One of the examples I use for human nature is you have to think yourself. If you were walking along and you heard a lot of noise and an individual was getting quite upset at the side of a body of water and their dog was in the water and they were terrified their dog was going to die, think to yourself, what would you do? Would you try and help this individual? You probably would. Would you go into the water? There is a good chance you would. We've all seen on social media people go into water to rescue a dog and then get themselves into difficulties, whether it's by the temperature of the water, whether it's by obstacles underneath, or it could even be the current. And before you know where you are, you, on your way to do whatever you're going to do, are then in potential to lose your life. So this is the aspect of human nature that we have to look at. So what can we do for firefighters, conscious of the time? We look at two sets of tools. We have core tools and conditional tools. Core tools are tools we can use every day. We can adapt them to suit what we want to do. Communication and briefing is vitally important. People must have the information. If you won't go to act on a situation without all the information, that in itself is an issue, because there is a potential for you to become injured or even lose your life. This is firefighters. We also use self-check and STAR. Equipment particularly. Check your equipment. Check you have, if it's in working order, check that if there's 3 or 4 in the team, that everyone is there. Everyone understands what to do. And there is generally a procedure. We know we are all governed by the process of health and safety. So make sure that procedure is followed and be aware of it and learn it. And just at the bottom here, we have a number of conditional tools. These are specific, not just to the industry I'm in. Take 2 seconds. Just think 2 seconds, 2 minutes. Think about what you're going to do. Three-way communication, you may have heard of that, you may have practiced it. You know, you give an instruction, the instruction is repeated back to you so you understand it's correct, and then you confirm that. And there are 2 or 3 others. I'm confident that with the appropriate intervention in terms of human performance, we can work hand in hand alongside technology. We can work with the innovation that has been put into the building design, building control, and our firefighters can become more and more safe. We can give them all the equipment they need, but I feel we have to spend more time making sure human nature is controlled better than it has been. And that is an element I feel very strongly about. And as long as I am within the organisation, I will continue to use the core tools, the conditional tools that we use to make sure that our firefighters are treated as safely, and they themselves will be able to operate under as safe conditions as possible. I'll never take away from the fact that there is an element of danger. I don't think we will ever remove that element of danger. We will always have it there. It's the nature of the business, but it's our responsibility as managers in the fire service to make sure that our firefighters are protected to the maximum. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. I do apologise if it came across more of a class discussion or a class lecture, but it was just to introduce you to the fact is that human performance has to be considered because, as I said to you already, when the design, the infrastructure requires firefighters to step in, something has obviously went wrong. So until we can resolve that, which may take us many, many more years, firefighters will always be exposed. So we will work harder with the human beings to try and control that. Thank you very much.